Hi, I'm Anthony Johnson with Mortgage Educators, and I want to help you pass the National Mortgage Exam. So a couple basics that I just want to cover. We always encourage all students to go over the National Test Outline. This is the resource that the NMLS provides so that you can be fully prepared to pass the national test. The National Test Outline is available on the NMLS Resource Center website under Testing. It's very interesting. I recently printed it off, and at the very top it says, please read carefully. That means that you need to go through and read it. I'm surprised to hear that several students that don't pass the test have never read it before. And so read through it carefully. On the top of the outline, it says legislative updates. What does that mean? Well, it's really important that you study updated statutes and regulations so that when you go into the test, you have accurate information and that you can pass it, because it's on you to make sure that you have current material that's updated. I'd like to discuss the structure of the MLO test. You're tested on 5 general topics: federal law, loan origination activities, ethics, general mortgage knowledge, and uniform state content. Out of the 5 areas that you're tested on, there's 120 questions. And each question has 4 possible multiple choice answers. There's no none of the above, and there's no all of the above. There's only one correct answer. There's 5 questions that are considered placebo. When you get your score, it's going to be graded out of 115. You have to get a 75% or better. So I'm going to talk about the first content area, which is federal law. 24% of that 120 questions is going to be related to federal law. What you're going to see on the exam is going to be, again, on the outline, but there's about a dozen or so federal laws that you'll need to know. You need to know the description, what the regulations are associated with that federal law. For instance, RESPA, the Real Estate Settlement and Procedures Act, that's called Reg X. And how does Reg X apply to mortgage lending? You'll need to give yourself some examples. This is exactly what I did to pass the test, is I went through the outline and I wrote down examples of each of those federal laws and how it apply to the mortgage industry. And so know the federal laws. This content area has been the hardest area as far as we've seen by MEC students. 27% of your tests is going to be on loan origination activities. We call this the math. Okay, and math questions come in all different forms, including story forms. Okay, so what are they going to ask you? So the loan inquiry process includes required disclosures. So there's a lot of disclosures that you're going to be doing as a mortgage loan originator to the borrower. Okay, you're going to have to know those disclosures. Borrower application. So there's 5 points here: accepting applications, offering and negotiating terms, managing information, permissible questions, and gift donors. Okay, you're going to have to go through as if you are taking an application. You should prepare yourself to be asked any question in the application process. Verifying forms. Another thing that stands out here is accuracy, the tolerances. So 0 tolerance service charge versus 10% tolerance. You're going to have to know that. What's a violation and what's not. Timing's always been a really important aspect of being an originator. So this term, know before you owe, is actually listed on the outline. So get to know that term, know before you owe. Notifications of actions taken, early disclosures. There may be lending scenarios where you have to disclose things early. Again, this is for the test, but this is applicable for your career. Loan estimate timing. So the initial loan estimate, revised loan estimate, what are the tolerances? You got to know that. Closing disclosure, the home ownership counseling disclosure, that applies to certain programs. And so what programs does it apply to? And so when do you have to have that disclosure go out? Okay, so these topic areas, they're kind of broken up into sub-main topics. And so the first one was loan inquiry application. The second one is qualification, which is processing and underwriting. So understanding processing and how underwriting, verifying that the terms meet the proper lending guidelines, essentially is underwriting, is really important for you as the loan originator. So borrower analysis, assets, liabilities, income. This is all part of qualifying for a loan. Qualifying so that the applicant, the borrower or borrowers meet the guidelines so that they can actually get the loan. Also, understanding the ability to repay. So can the borrower actually repay the loan. So you may get questions that have, well, here's the lending scenario, here's the borrower. Are they going to qualify for this much? There's a variety of possible questions around origination activities. We sometimes get questions from MEC students that said, well, we didn't know that there was going to be questions on appraisals. There'll be a question on appraisals, I'm sure. The title report, insurance, PMI, as far as mortgage insurance goes, then closing, title insurance, settlement closing, calculations. You're going to be asked maybe monthly payments, what's the down payment, closing costs, prepaids, ARM adjustments. And so a 3-1 ARM, a 5-1 ARM, a 7-1 ARM, when do they adjust? Here's the scenario, here's the terms. What is going to be the rate, or what is going to be the payment during the first adjustment, the second adjustment, after 5 years, what might the payment be? I mean, all those are possible and likely questions on the exam. So 18% of the questions are going to come under ethics. Here's some of the things just going down: ethical issues, redlining. What's redlining? Fairness in lending, defining what a referral is, what are required disclosures that go along with that, appraiser conflict of interest, discrimination and fairness, fraud detection. How do you report it? What's your responsibility and duty? Fraud detection can include asset, income, employment fraud, sales contract fraud, just general red flags. So there may be a question on the test that says, here's the scenario, here's what the borrower said, here's what the information that it was given, and what is a red flag here? And here's the 4 possible answers. Okay, suspicious bank and other activity, unfair, deceptive, and abusive acts. That's called UDAP. That's actually a law that you need to know, UDAP. And then your financial responsibility. And so permitted fees, what can you charge? Closing costs, handling borrower complaints. So if you get a complaint, what happens? Mortgage company compliance, okay? So just because you're an individual licensee, you'll need to know what your mortgage company compliance policies are, the procedures, truth in marketing, advertising, what's permissible as far as what can you state, how can you market, how do you handle personal information, cybersecurity, what if there was changes in down payments, or what if something changed? Ethically, what do you need to do? Unreported or fluctuating income, and then just general business ethics. Falsified information by a borrower or an MLO. The third topic area that I'm going to talk about is general mortgage knowledge. Okay, that's 20% of your test. This deals with, just going line by line, again, down the outline. What's a qualified mortgage? I mean, that's a whole specific line item, and so I would make sure to read up. There's a lot of resources about what is a qualified mortgage. You'll have to know that as an originator. Conventional versus conforming, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, what are they? They're government-sponsored entities, but how does that fit into the mortgage lending scenario? Government loans. So VA, FHA, USDA, those lending institutions that are owned by the government, how do they work? How did they get into the mortgage business? And going back to conventional and non-conforming, jumbo, subprime mortgages. What about non-QM, non-qualified mortgages? You'll have to know that. There's a whole section which has 8 items on mortgage loan products. So it's safe to say that you're going to be tested probably several questions on mortgage loan products. So knowing how ARMs work, adjustable rate mortgages, fixed rate mortgages, okay, balloon mortgages, reverse mortgages, or HECMs as they call them, construction mortgages, interest-only mortgages. You'll need to know loan products. There's certain terms that are used in the mortgage industry, and here's just a couple that you'll need to know to pass the exam. Escrow accounts, what's a lien, tolerances, rate lock, table funding. What about yield spread premiums? Federal mortgage loans, servicing transfers, and lender credits. What I would do here is I would list every possible term that's related to the mortgage industry to help you pass the test. You're going to be tested on some of these terms. There's also certain financial terms as well. Discount points, what's 2-to-1 buy down, loan to value, LTV, DTI, debt to income, finance charges, daily simply interest. The NMLS, again, can pull any of these terms and create a question. So don't leave any of these out, especially the ones listed. Even if they're not listed, if it's a mortgage term that you found, I would absolutely put that on your study material. There's also just some overall general terms. Even if it seems simple, absolutely put that into your study outline that you're creating because again, they can ask you these questions and you need to prepare yourself. Now, we get a lot of questions about uniform state content. There's not state-specific information that'll be on the national test, but there's general state-specific information. So I know that sounds a little bit confusing, but if you go off of the outline, you can see what I'm talking about. So you won't see a specific state, Texas, Florida, California, listed on the test, but in a general term, it'll say, for state law, such and such applies. And so just because it says uniform state content doesn't mean that a specific state is going to be in there. It says licensing qualifications, application process. So you'll need to know that as a potential test question of how the pre-licensing education breaks down. So every state requires a 20-hour pre-licensing requirement. That's a national requirement, but it applies to each state. How does that 20-hour break down? 3 hours of federal law, 3 hours of general mortgage, 2 hours of ethics, and then what about the other 12? The other 12 are general electives. And so we've chosen here at MEC to focus on the topics that are listed on the outline, but you are required to do 20 hours in that format, and that might be a test question. The sponsorship requirement, when you go through the licensing process and you get approved for a license, you're not active until you're sponsored. So that's something that they want you to know. And so those are examples of the uniform state content. Again, 11% is the percentage that is going to be on the test in that topic area. Those are the 5 topic areas that you're tested on. But what's really, really important, okay? So this is really important. At the end of the 5 topic areas is a reference list. It's the SAFE Mortgage Loan Originator Test National Component with Uniform State Content reference list. And I just want to cover briefly because a lot of people miss this. The following is a list of the sources used in the development of the national test component. It's not intended to be an all-inclusive list, but may be used as a guide in preparing to take the test. This reference list has the information, it states it right here. This is how they develop the questions that are on the test. Go through each of these reference list links. They're actually links that you can go to that reference a website that has a lot of information, and you can go right to the source. This reference list is the source for all the questions. It's also important to remember that the test isn't categorized by topic. So when you go and take the test, you don't know if you're getting a federal law question, a general mortgage knowledge question. Going into it, if you've taken the test already and you think, okay, I got tested on these areas and these questions, you may not see those again. Thanks for watching the video today. We hope it really helped you in preparing and taking and passing the national test. Tune into MEC, subscribe to our YouTube, following us on social media. It's really important for us to provide our students with updated and accurate information, and you can trust that we're doing that on a regular basis for our test prep. So if you're struggling with studying for the national test, we have the answer for you. The Ultimate Test Prep, which is linked here and below, you'll want to make sure to enroll in that. We have the resources, the practice questions, the video content that's going to help you fully prepare and pass the national test. Again, good luck, be confident, and go out there and pass that test.